Okay, so they talked how do you get someone interested in you, but now you've mentioned to go to the school and stuff like that. What is an official visit? What's an unofficial visit? And what should I expect and how are they different?
Official visit, you're allowed 5 of those. You cannot take it until the first day of your senior year. I want to make sure I have that at the start of your classes, so it might be different for other people. You're only allowed 5 of those, and in terms of that, the school can pay for your transportation to the campus, to stay in for housing and for food. No merchandise, so if somebody tries to buy you a t-shirt, you have to say no to that. It would be a nice idea. They're still sleeping out there, I think. Unofficial visits, you must stay on campus, and they cannot pay for anything. So that's pretty important for you to know. Because of the recruiting process becoming so much earlier, unofficial visits have become more of the trend. Not too many people get to the official visit part until they've committed to a school, but it still does happen once in a while in terms of that. They can pay for transportation. They can pay for your parents to stay in a hotel, so you can make sure you can understand that. Unofficial visits, you can take as many as you want. So you can take 700 of them if you want. Again, you have to pay and have the expense for that. So in this process of recruiting, especially since it's been a little bit earlier, I think it's important that you do your research to know what schools you're interested in. And I think Janet said earlier that if you're driving by a school, you're heading towards a tournament, and there's a school that you're interested in, it's a good reason just to stop by and meet with the coach and do that and sort of put it along the way of your travels to do some stuff financially to save you some money in that way. But I think those are quite important.
Just to stick with a little bit of terminology, what's a walk-on and what's a red shirt?
Julie, let me just add one thing.
Go on.
When you guys listen to the NCAA schools, remember the NAIA schools really don't have any of those rules. So
they can do whatever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah, and it was really nice because I had nothing to study and really nothing to learn. But it just shows you when you are in the recruiting process, though, you deal with character, okay, and your coach's character and their assistant's character. Because in the NAIA, you can come visit my school whenever you want. You can talk to me whenever you want. You can call me. I can go up to you when you're a sophomore, freshman, no matter what. And a lot of the coaches, I shouldn't say a lot, but you know, there's a good amount that will overstep, I believe, what they do. And you know, I'm not going to go up to a sophomore. That's not what I'm about. I know my niche, and I'm not going to abuse what I can do. I look for student athletes. I look for book smart kids who want to play ball, and I'm not going after who Paula, Janet, they're going after. And they have to start their process a lot early, so they have to live within those rules, which is very critical to their success. But all 3 of these guys up here, D1s, are great coaches with great character, and they stay in those rules. I kind of, coming from club, you know, like I said, we don't have official visits, unofficial visits. You just, you know, you email me, we talk. If the school seems to be right, we get you on campus to take a look. And then we go from there. And as far as me going to games and walking up to players, I can do that. So basically, we have very few rules. But in any sport and with any coaches, you know, you're going to look for character. And especially in the NAIA, you want to look for that character because there's no structure that's really going to, you know, that coach could pounce on a player and overwhelm them, you know, and that's not what we're here for. But so when you're listening to these guys, they have to live within the structure, and I kind of like to keep into that same structure. And but like I said, NAIA, if you're interested in those schools, when you're a freshman or sophomore and you have questions, you can go ahead and call the coach. You can go email the coach, and the coach will respond to you immediately. Okay?
Just a couple of things I want to add to that, and I think I talked about it earlier. In Division II, we are allowed to pay for a meal on an unofficial visit. Recently, I had a recruit and her dad on campus, and I'm thinking this is going to be a pretty quick meal because we had an academic appointment at 1 o'clock, and these people piled so much food on their plates, it was... I didn't know if they had eaten before in their whole entire life, but so it's kind of funny for me because I've been a Division I coach for a long time and have not gone through that, but there are inherent differences. It's a subtle difference for Division II, but we can provide one meal. The only thing I would add, just for the official visit purposes, there's a paper trail, and I'm on my campus's sustainability committee, so I have a particular pet peeve with this, but we have 8 pages of paper that we have to hand in to our compliance officer just to agree to this young lady and parents or relatives to come on our campus. So you have to give the college coach some advance notice in order to do an official visit. And I'm not sure how the other coaches deal with it, but if you give them some notice, we can get that paperwork done and get it all secure. But that is one thing taken into. You can't just call up on Thursday night and say I'm coming on Friday for an official visit. It doesn't work that way unless I've done it wrong for 21 years.
All right. I know Paula touched on the number of scholarships, but how many scholarships does your school have? And if you do not have athletic scholarships, what is available? Can I combine athletic, academic? Will you give a full scholarship, or are there partials?
Maybe let me, because I think the question we kind of skipped over to was the walk-on. And let me explain Division I, and Paula mentioned it in terms of the 14 scholarships, and Paul and Paula can add in their 2 cents if I miss something. First of all, you need to understand that soccer is treated differently than what's called a head count sport on college campuses. That would include football, men's and women's basketball, volleyball. They're what they call head count sports. So if Paula's on a volleyball scholarship, it doesn't matter how much she's on, she counts as 1, and they can add up to 15 in women's basketball. They can't split them up. If Paula's on a dime, she's 1, and they can have 15 people on scholarship. So they count heads, i.e. they call it a head count sport. Soccer's not that way. It's an equivalency sport, which means we can take our 14 scholarships and we can have a roster of whatever size we want, and we can break those 14 scholarships up into as many pieces of whatever size that we would like to. So Paula can be on 10%, and I can be on 10%, and he can be on 10%, and we can do that until we spend 14 scholarships. It doesn't matter if those scholarships are in-state or out-of-state. If it's $200 to go to school out of state, and I give Paula $100, she's 50%. If it's $100 to go in-state, and he's from in-state, and I give him $50, it's 50%. So it's not the dollar figure as much as it is the equivalency. So you'll find in college soccer that you'll get offers that are all over the map in terms of that. And most of Division I schools, some are fully funded, meaning they have all 14 scholarships. Some may only be partially funded. They may not have the dollar figure to give out all 14 scholarships. That's a great question to ask a coach, are you a fully funded program from a scholarship perspective? Are you fully funded strictly from athletic money? Some people will build up to 14 scholarships by adding athletic aid or academic aid or other aid on top of that. Some people, it's 14 full scholarships strictly from the athletic department. I think that also sort of changes the definition of walk-on. In your mind, walk-on is the 16th person on the end of the basketball bench because you counted the other 15 heads, and the 16th head is a walk-on. I think when it comes to all of our sports, we all have what I would call non-scholarship athletes who are significant pieces of our program. Because we can spread that money out, it goes all the way down to 0. There are some members of our teams that are on 0 and some that are on 100%. It runs the gamut, and all of those I think probably have an impact on the program. So to say walk-on in our terminology is probably a little bit different than if you're a walk-on on the men's basketball team and you're the kid on the bench that they all scream every time he gets into the game finally because he's just been a practice player. It's not that way in an equivalency sport in the same way that it would be in a head count sport. And one of these guys may want to address this, so I don't take up the mic, about adding academic or other aid on top of an athletic scholarship, if one of you guys want to address that.
I'll just add one piece to that with the walk-ons. There's always, and I'll say most places, there's always an opportunity to earn money as you go. You may come in as a non-scholarship athlete, but that doesn't mean that because you come in as a freshman as a non-scholarship athlete that your remaining part of your career you'll be a non-scholarship athlete. I've seen many kids go through many programs who just want to earn their spot, and they do that, and by the time they're out of there, they've earned some sort of scholarship, if not maybe sometimes a full ride by their senior year. And that's something you may want to ask your coach about. Hey, are you locked into your scholarship of your freshman year? You know, will I have the opportunity to earn more money as I'm here? And it's a great question to ask. Other questions to ask as far as scholarship is concerned, other pieces of the puzzle, summer school. Is summer school covered? You know, is my 5th year covered? Most students will go in and they'll end up taking 5 years to finish their degree. How much do you cover in my 5th year, or any scholarship in my 5th year? Those are good questions to ask, because most student athletes don't finish in 4 years now. A lot do go into 5th year programs. So those are some good questions to ask, I think.
The academic part is, I think it's a tricky part, because sometimes you'll receive academic money, or say you're graduating and the Rotary Club decides to give you $1,000 because you're wonderful from your area. And that Rotary part maybe is because you did really well in school and you did really well on a soccer team. And as soon as soccer becomes part of the puzzle for your academic award, it counts against the whole team's scholarship allotment. So your coach has figured out right to 14, you get that $1,000. Now you can't accept it because it'll put them at 14.1 or 0.01. And so you've really got to talk to the coach about what the situation with it is and how you're getting your academic awards. Sometimes it might not, if you're a National Merit Scholar and has nothing to do with your sport, then that's something that you can accept if that's something through the school that you do. So you have to really talk to your coach about what can count against them and what can't. And so sometimes if you get academic aid, it helps you and the team in that way. I think the other part for the for the scholarship that you have to consider is this, is maybe in 1 year, depending on how the scholarships go through a Division I team, I might have 2 scholarships available for 2011. I might have 5 scholarships available. It all depends on how the cycle is played out, who has money. A player might redshirt, so money might fall into another year, and that's stuff that gets pretty complicated for you to know. However, part of it goes like this. You might be a great player, and I want you at my school. However, I need to spend that money on a goalkeeper, and you happen to be an outside midfielder. So you've got to talk to the coach about where they're going to allot the money. Some coaches might say, hey, listen, you're the best player we can get. We're going to get you. But in some years, you know, you might be limited in your scholarship money and saying, okay, well, I need a goalkeeper, and I'm pretty sure you're 5'2", and that's not going to work out. So you've really got to ask those questions. And I think through all the years that I've been going through this, I've talked to a lot of parents, and they get kind of timid around this question. And I think there's no question about the program that's off limits in terms of that. And I think you've got to be honest, and the coach will answer it how they want to answer it. But you've got to say, okay, how many scholarships do you have available this year? What positions are you really looking for in need? You know, where some programs are, it might be, okay, we're just trying to get the best players we can. There might be some programs where I specifically want a center back who is 5'9", blonde hair, and can run really fast. They might be looking for something very specific. And they might say, well, come to my school, and I don't have any money this year, but I think what Paul said is you can earn it in the future, because, you know, maybe in a couple years we need a center back who is a complete and utter blade. So, you know, whatever you might need, but you need to ask those questions. And I think if you leave a school and you haven't asked those questions, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Most people are like, well, I don't want to upset the coach. That's not the case. You need to get as much information as possible.
One other thing about academic, I think I just read it recently in the Tribune, but a young lady went through the effort of applying for, I don't know how many scholarships she applied for, but she ended up getting $28,000 in aid. And I have my brother's daughter's doing the same thing, and she's filled out over 50 applications for financial aid. There's money out there that isn't that isn't being used. So you've got to try and find it. And every school does it a little bit differently. Some schools will give a lot for a 28 ACT, and some schools will give a little. So it's up to each individual school how they issue academic aid. I just wanted to make that clear.